I am so excited that we are starting this new podcast series that we're calling Vibe Coding with Steve and Gene. I'm Gene Kim.
And I'm Steve Yegge.
Ha. And our goal is to share with you what we've learned while writing the Vibe Coding book, which comes out in 8 weeks. We've both been making the very last changes to the manuscript, and I'm so proud of how this book came out, Steve. It was such a fun book to write. It was such a fun book to read, and I think it shows so wonderfully how much we've learned, how many adventures we've been on, and how vibe coding can help every developer integrate AI into the daily work and the problems they face. And so our goal is to record one of these every couple of days. We're going to jump into one section of the book and talk about some of the insights that we gained. Some of it made it into the book, some of it didn't. And so I have to say that in the first two episodes, I screwed up the recording. I'm so sorry. So instead of gallery view, you're going to see only one speaker at a time. My apologies, but we do fix it in episode 3. Last time was about the life-changing moments that we talked about in the preface. And so this time, Steve, I thought it would be great to talk about FAAFO, the value that vibe coding creates. Specifically, it allows us to do our work faster. We can be more ambitious about the things that we can build. We're able to do things more autonomously or alone. And the most important F is fun. We can have so much more fun doing it. And then O is optionality, having more swings at bat. Steve, how does that sound as a topic for episode number 2?
Yeah, it sounds good. And I would want to reiterate something you said that resonated with me, right? We're proud of this book. This book, it was really hard to write. But you know what? This book is funny and it's fun to read. And you know what? It really is packed filled with like all sorts of interesting wisdom. And FAAFO is one of the themes of the book, right? It's not the only one, right? We have others. Definitely the head chef, the chef metaphor, the kitchen, running a kitchen. It just runs all the way through the book because we found you can stretch that metaphor forever. And there are themes around in outer developer loops and around level 1, 2, and 3 of the where you organize work, all sorts of themes in the book that we bring together because this really is affecting not just programming, but all knowledge work. But FAAFO,
Absolutely.
which we just stumbled on, we just listed out the things we liked about vibe coding, and it's spelled FAAFO. And I was like, did you notice? And we were trying to think of something different and it just stuck. So there you go. They really are a really interesting set of dimensions. Let's talk through them, Gene. Let's go through them one at a time, yeah?
Yeah. And if you heard episode 1, we both talked about specific projects where vibe coding helped us achieve things that would not have been possible before. And so we tried to split out dimensions of what they are. So let's go to the first one, faster. And so in last episode, I talked about the 2 hours that changed my life in August 2024, where you offered to do a 2-hour pair programming session with me. And I was able to convert a bunch of screenshots along with the transcripts in the YouTube video and generate excerpts, video excerpts with the captions on it. And to do that in 47 minutes was definitely faster. I think upon reflection, we put in the book, this is something that I think I could have done in maybe 2 days if I'm optimistic. And the fact that it involves FFmpeg, which is just notoriously famous for how it's cryptic command line arguments, it might have taken me longer.
Yeah, and also you wound up with code that you really liked, and it was well tested, which you probably would have skipped on before. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Like it was really good. But that's why we put fast first in the
yeah,
list because it's the most obvious and really the one that hits you the hardest is wow, this is a
yeah,
huge accelerator. It's not the only thing that's going on, but it's definitely the first one you notice. I was
yeah.
really impressed at how much you got done in 47 minutes. It was wild.
That's amazing. But I think that sets the stage for being ambitious. If it took me only 2 days, if I could promise myself that I could have written in 2 days, would I have? And I think the answer is probably not. I had a year of opportunity to do that. And I think if I were an economist, I would say maybe the juice wasn't worth the squeeze. There are other things I could have worked on in 2 days that would have higher payoff or the uncertainty of it, right? I've worked with FFmpeg before. And in general, right, whatever I set out to do takes much longer, right? I mean, I probably have had 5 encounters with FFmpeg before for various projects. And it's notorious for being write only, right? You can never read what you've written afterwards and just used the video layers and so forth. I was actually very intimidated by it. And so vibe coding allowed me to tackle something that was more ambitious than I would have taken on before. In fact, if it weren't for you being there, saying, Gene, you could do it, I'm not sure if I would have stuck it all the way through because at the first sign of difficulty, my instincts have been, all right, it's time to bail out because this is going to be days of wasted effort. Ambitious. How does that resonate with you?
Yeah, so that we talked about that in the last episode. It was my life-changing moment was when I had hung up my programmer's hat, but chat coding and then ultimately agentic coding got me back into it in the biggest way possible. I am a programmer again, and I took a look. Still a giant code base. It's still a huge problem. It's not like it's going to get solved overnight, but my ambition came back because I'm like, oh, it's actually tractable again. It's solvable, and I know that it's just going to get even better over time. I'll be making great progress now, and as the models get smarter, etc. So I find it very exciting, which is ambition also comes from, are you excited about it? Is it work that motivates you? Does it energize you? And we find this stuff so energizing that we just find that we are more ambitious kind of inherently. Almost
Yeah.
too ambitious sometimes. You try to make the agents do too much, and
Yeah.
then you get in trouble. Right?
Yeah.
You have to gate your ambition.
And let's get super concrete here. Like the one for reasons that the story that really spoke to me was actually two of them. One was you girding yourself to convert your Ruby admin script in Wyvern to Kotlin, right? I think that was within your reach before, but something happened that made you say, "I'm going to tackle it today."
I had tried on and off for 10 years to,
That's right.
to do something, but I was just trying to get it to work and just maintain it. It was like a huge, the thought of porting it to Kotlin was just like, it was just going to be too big of a project to justify. The ROI just wasn't there. It worked today.
Yeah.
Why would I go to all the effort to port it to Kotlin, which comes with some downsides actually. And even though my contributor, my team members all wanted it to be Kotlin,
Yeah.
right?
And here, let's talk about another one that was impossible. The notion of potentially replacing all the Wyvern clients on Android, iOS, and Linux, Windows, Mac OS. You had some ambitions there that suddenly that triggers ambition. Can you talk about that?
Yeah, that's one of my ongoing permanent work streams now. I find that the best way that I work with multiple agents at once is the agents have almost like names and jobs and personalities and like what they work on. And one of them is replacing literally five clients written in stuff like Objective-C and Java with
Ah,
Swing. We're talking about the best of early 90s technology. And I'm replacing it with Node and maybe React, or maybe I've got a Svelte and React version. We can talk about that in the optionality episode, but I
yeah.
haven't fully made up my mind yet, which I'm going to run with. It's wonderful that
And
vibe coding gives you that option. Yeah.
so maybe, in fact, just a little placeholder, right? There's even a part of you that has some ambition to potentially replace it all with one Flutter client, right? That would replace them all.
Yeah, actually, it's probably going to work the best because of the Steam integration. So yeah, like I was able to change my mind in a heartbeat and have the thing port the whole app over from React to Flutter in what, I don't know, a couple of passes. There's a process to it. We'll go through it. The book goes through it in great detail. It's not
Yeah.
like I said, port it to Flutter and it just did it because that's what everyone thinks is going on with vibe coding, and it's not. Okay.
Yeah.
It's a very powerful tool, but what it did was it made me ambitious enough to go and do the work myself with the help of the AI. Yeah.
Yeah.
So
Okay.
yeah,
So like,
this is but it's hugely ambitious, right? We're talking about a client that's used by thousands of active players right now. And I'm talking about having to take the time to go and rip them out of the app stores, and then including the Apple Store, the Android Store, the Steam Store, and then the online client for Linux, the free one, and replace all of them with this vibe coded client that I've never even looked at the source code for. Okay. It sounds like complete insanity, but I'm totally excited for it. And
oh
that's just
man, that's
one of
cool.
my agents.
We'll put a little, I'll put that back in the box and we'll open up again under optionality. But before we leave ambitious, there's two ends of the spectrum. One is like the impossible becomes the frontier of the impossible gets brought in, but also small-ish low return jobs become quick wins. I love this came up in an interview of the Claude Code team where they started measuring the number of tasks where a customer reports an issue and is fixed within 30 minutes, as opposed to opening up the equivalent of a Jira ticket or whatever, and then prioritizing it and then languishing in the backlog. The notion that something's become able to be done without actually having to generate a ticket, you just do it right away. I just find that also very exciting.
Yeah, they should be generating tracking tickets for it anyway.
Or yes,
But yeah, like the fact that they go ahead and they did that, that's all they're doing is a ticket to like the paperwork after it got fixed. That's a really healthy place to be. They're combating broken Windows syndrome, right? They're keeping their bug backlogs small. something that just has never been in reach for any company ever, but now it's possible. And another manifestation of it, we shouldn't leave that's the first A behind just yet, is that you can be more ambitious about the quality of work that you're doing. You can be ambitious about your level of testing, for example. You can say, I'm ambitious enough to want 100% test coverage of really good quality tests for this stupid tool that almost does nothing. And it's because you can, right? And so that ambition is just, it shows up everywhere in this fractal-like way. A company can be more ambitious about a big product that it takes on. You can be more ambitious about a technology stack that you want to tackle, or you can just be more ambitious about the kind of the quality you put into your own work every day. They all happen.
Absolutely. All right. We got F for faster. We got A for ambitious. The second A, the third letter is alone. It started off as alone. And thanks to Matt Ring, phenomenal reviewer, he and others hinted that it might be the wrong word. And so we changed the A from alone to autonomous. And so the whole notion of autonomous actually came from a story that you told me last summer. If I recall correctly, it was your head of AI created a multi-pass classifier in an afternoon, and had it happened the previous year, that would have been a summer intern project for two months. And the whole notion that he
Yeah.
could do it himself. Did I capture that right?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah. And there's two really kind of amazing things that being able to do things more autonomously alone unlocks. One is the coordination cost. Like whenever you have to rely on other teams, right? So in the worst case, you have to coordinate with them, synchronize with them, prioritize them, cajole them, try to make it as important to them as it is to you. And if you have enough dependencies, this thing will never get done. And so, whenever you can do things within your group or by yourself, things become much easier to complete. The second expensive tax they have to pay is the I can't read your mind tax. Steve, if you agree to help me and you say it's just as important to you as it is to me, this other problem exists, which is I need to somehow convey to you what the goals are and take everything that's in my head and get into your head so that we can have a shared goal, shared vision, so that we can actually work together towards a common goal. And that's often not so easy. And our friend, Dr. Daniel Rock, who was a part of the OpenAI jobs report, he has been so fun to talk to. And in the book, we describe how he describes it, which is what he calls the drift from the movie Pacific Rim. So these are where you have giant robots fighting kaiju monsters. And he describes how he was able to write a GitHub app. He learned about them on Tuesday and had a working prototype on Thursday. And the way he did it was he opened up Claude and asked, how do I write an engineering specification for a GitHub app? A couple hours in, he ropes in his designer, who's also his chief of staff, who starts putting in kind of what the user interactions would look like. And then on day two, they bring in their head engineer, who's able to start thinking about how you test this thing and how you actually integrate this into something that can actually actualize this functionality. And he said the drift is what allows them to read each other's minds in the same way that these giant robot pilots are able to read their minds to fight the kaiju robots. And I just thought that was such a great depiction of how working more autonomously enables this sort of ability for teams to get done what they want to get done. Steve, how am I doing?
Yeah, there's two different kinds of autonomy going on here. There's individual autonomy and then there's team autonomy, which is why we switched from alone to autonomous, right? Because it applies to both. And Dr. Rock's was about team autonomy, right? But we started off by talking about individual autonomy, and both of them actually, I think they're both really interesting. This problem in general, is solved. There are different solutions to this problem that have existed through our careers, right? I was one of those solutions at one point. I was a technical program manager at Amazon my first year there. TPMs are a very popular solution to this problem of coordination costs and communication. The TPM is, first of all, the central store. And if anybody has a question about what's the canonical answer to something about the project, they go to the TPM, who maintains it in some artifact that they have, right? And the TPM goes and barks at people to make sure they're coordinating, right? There are other solutions to this that maybe don't work as well as a dedicated person, shared OKRs and things like that. This is a fundamental problem in the industry, and there are even other solutions. The beautiful thing about vibe coding is that it actually shrinks the space so much that you can accomplish things by you don't have to speed up, you don't have to have faster communication, you don't have to have better coordination. You have none because you're doing it all yourself. And that actually applies at the team level as well. And I'll talk about this maybe in a future whole episode, but Jeff Bezos invented the two pizza team, and I was actually a two pizza team lead like in 2001 to reduce customer contacts. Two pizza team is a team that's small, should be feedable by two pizzas. It consists of domain experts from whatever domain that they're trying to solve. Ours was customer service. And people come and go from the project maybe as needed, right, to get it done. They're autonomous, right? They're actually given that sort of agency to go and get things done autonomously. And they have these sort of Jeff Bezos tickets they can hand out if they get stuck. So they really, truly are autonomous. So yeah, this stuff is really potent. Okay. It's really powerful because we're seeing the two pizza team reemerge. Dr. Rock created a two pizza team. He calls it the Drift, but that's really what it was. Okay. A small team of experts across different domains who are working together to accomplish something very specific. And vibe coding has made it possible now in a way that's never been possible in our careers. Product managers can talk to engineers now, like directly through working prototypes, right? There's no translation layer. Everybody goes through, right, the LLM. We'll spend probably a whole episode just on that. But it's absolutely fascinating what's happening, and it's all a function of this increased autonomy that's happening.
Yeah. And I think it's maybe worthwhile to talk about maybe why this is so important. You talk about like how development is often the bottleneck. Everyone wants development to do something, but if it's not revenue generating, if it's not above the line, it just can't get done, right? And so that means everyone else is stuck. Can you talk about that? How
Oh gosh,
Vibe
yeah.
can unlock that?
Really good point. Yeah. So we're seeing, okay, so like broadly speaking, the people who are usually waiting on engineering are non-engineers, right?
Yeah.
But they need software. Marketing need contact management software. Analysts need specific kinds of SaaS. And everybody needs software internal, usually in-house internal software built because you don't want to go through procurement and some evaluation process and trials to get some SaaS that's going to be crappy in the end and not bespoke to your needs. This is the world we all live in. Okay, and I say that as a SaaS vendor, but our SaaS isn't crappy. It's really good. But check it out. Now with vibe coding, we're seeing these teams. Product managers are building working prototypes. UX designers are actually contributing UI code now instead of just mock-ups. Finance teams are building systems that they're handing to engineers and saying, please put this in production. And the engineers are like, we should have a talk about this. But they do work. And we've talked to at least a couple of companies where like they've successfully replaced crummy third-party SaaS with their own internally vibe-coded thing. They were totally ambitious and they were totally autonomous to a point. You're autonomous up to a point. It means you can get something working, and then at the end, at the edges, when you're ready to deploy, when you're ready to get it reviewed, you go to human experts. Yeah, it's a beautiful model. We'll talk more about it, but this is the way the world is headed.
Yeah, and just before, we didn't put this in the book, but we got this incredible story of a company who were able to release this. There was a vendor supported product to do some sort of authentication, like I think driver's licenses, right, to make sure they're valid. And when that vendor increased their prices, they said, "Hey, can we make one ourselves?" And they did. And to their shock, the most risk averse production readiness teams had said, "Looks good to me. Put it in production." and
Yeah, and they had to make a couple of changes, right? They
yeah,
had,
yeah,
there's some security things, but they were like, yeah, this is solid. This is good. So this is a team that vibe coded a production service. They weren't engineers, and it was something that replaced like real world software that they were paying for. So
yeah.
this is not exactly trivial stuff that they built. And yeah, it wasn't critical path where if it went down, suddenly users wouldn't be able to use the site, but it was nevertheless an extremely important sort of analytic type of a daily batch process or ongoing stream. So yeah, we're gonna bust a bunch of myths in this show.
Yeah.
And that's one of the myths is that this stuff is only for toys. We see non-engineers building non-toys with it. And you can imagine trained engineers can build amazing things with it.
Absolutely. And I think what's remarkable about that story is that the business saw such value in it. They said, "We need this. What does it take to get into production?" And so that's cool. They built something of value.
Yeah. Let's do the fun one.
Let's do the fun one. Yeah. Fast, ambitious, autonomous and alone, and fun. Oh my gosh. Steve, you hinted at this in the last episode. There is this dopamine reward system that kicks in that makes vibe coding surprisingly addictive. You say you have to put in specific practices to make sure that you go to sleep on time, that you're not coding at 3 a.m. all the time. But there is something so gratifying and rewarding of creating what you want that it is so fun. In the very beginning, we talked about how vibe coding is it's a productivity boost, but also it makes coding and everything more fun. Steve.
It does, but we should be clear that the real addiction doesn't kick in until you're using agentic vibe
Ah,
code.
yeah.
Yeah. It's slightly, chat coding can be more fun, but it can also be really frustrating. And I'm talking about Cursor, right? Copilot, anything where any tool that you're still using today where you're having a conversation with AI and it's making changes to your code for you, but you're watching the changes as they're being made. That's not fun. That it's not, it may be more productive, but not, it's a little more fun, but it's not addictive at all. The stuff that you get into with Claude Code and SourceGraph AMP and Codex and what Gemini CLI, whatever, anyone that runs in a loop and burns tokens to solve the problem for you and only comes back to you when it gets stuck, and you can really tell it to never come back to you, that's when you are going to become an addict and a drooling addict. Okay. And you're not going to want to give it up either. You're going to be a happy addict. Yeah.
Yeah. In fact, my last episode, you told us about the puppeteer aha moment, just seeing it magically move buttons and wire up the buttons for you. For me, it was the Trello API. So that's kind of like a Kanban card management system that I've been using for a decade. And the problem I was facing was that for the book, I was putting in a lot of research cards, but I never used attachments before. And so often, if there was an article link, I would go ahead and scrape the article and put in an attachment. I could write attachments just fine, but I couldn't read them. I was getting some strange 401 error. And for 40, I remember texting you for 45 minutes, I was being bossed around by Claude Code saying, oh, try this. And I would try it. And then I would copy and paste the error message back into Claude Code. And I'm like, here's the error message. And go, try that. And so 45 minutes later, I'm exhausted. I'm frustrated. And I think something in me broke. I'm like, screw you. You do it. And of which it responded, I can't run curl. And I said, write a program that acts just like curl. And to my shock, 45 seconds later, it tried 6 different things and told me that, oh, I got it working. It requires using an OAuth authorization header, whatever that is. I have no idea. But that was amazing because once I gave Claude Code the ability to see the results of its own work, it could iterate by itself and gave me a working answer, and I didn't have to copy and paste anymore. So that was seriously fun.
Is it always fun all the time, Gene?
No, 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 no. In the book, we talk about it being like a slot machine. Sometimes the rewards are very high, and that's a lot of fun. But sometimes you run around in circles. Sometimes it actually hallucinates API endpoints that don't exist, and that's not so fun. And
I could tell some stories about some not so fun experiences I
yeah,
had.
why don't you give us your favorite
Uh,
not fun story?
I mean, and we can empathize. We do empathize with the people online who are posting on X and LinkedIn and whatever, saying that they're miserable because they tried stuff and it didn't
Hmm.
work, or it had terrible results, or right, all of that stuff. Okay, that's not fun. We agree. We agree with you. That part's not fun. It's a really fast car you've been given, all right? And you got to learn how to drive it, and nobody taught you how to drive it. You don't even know what a car is. Okay, so maybe you're having fun with it, or maybe you're wrecking it into trees, right? We wrecked our car many times, yeah. But it is a super fast car, and so you can have fun with it, but you're also going to have huge wrecks, okay? It's just everything's faster. And like for me, like just off the top of my head, if you have 5 agents going, it's very easy to not be paying close enough attention to one of them in one dimension that really screws you. And that dimension just happened to be whether it was checking my code into master or just to some branch. And I thought it had been merging it into main, and it hadn't. And so when I told it to clean up all its working garbage intermediate branches, which you have to do frequently because we have a whole section called AI is a litter bug in the book, right? And so during the cleanup phase, it deleted all the code. And we're talking about a week's worth of code because it had just been going on in this window, right?
And I
And
think
it
that
was
was a
big
thousand
code
dollars
at
worth
that.
of tokens.
Yeah, it was $1,000. It was a really big hunk, and I had that queasy feeling in my stomach. And the weird thing was, I could see the code, and I'm like, just check it in before we lose it, because I can see it. And Claude was like, I don't see nothing. And we just went back and forth. I tried different agents, and I was scared to death, Gene. That was not fun. That was the other kind of FAAFO. I tell you right now, okay? It was the bad FAAFO. And what had happened was the code really was deleted, but I really was looking at it was an orphaned inode in a terminal window that if I had closed it or even left the directory, it would have been gone forever. But Unix has this weird feature that it'll hang on to it as long as you're looking at it. And so I was able to make a copy it into a secure location and then checked in. So I didn't lose my code. So whew, so then I had, I don't know, the end of adrenaline with a little bit of dopamine mixed in, and I was like, I need more of this. It's so counterintuitive. You wreck your car and then you just want to go do it again. But yeah, that's just one example. It'll do bad things. And we talk about a lot of them in the book and you'll experience more. But you kind of you get a feel for it, right? It's like saying your car will do bad things if you take your hand off the wheel and jam it on the accelerator. And it's like, yeah, you learn what those bad things are, and then you put your hand on the wheel and you keep it from doing those things.
Yeah. And we're gonna have a whole episode on the dark side of FAAFO. So I
And
you
we
know
have
and
a
I'm
whole part
yeah.
three on the things that you do to detect
Oh
and prevent and correct, right?
yeah. Yeah, all the
Huge number
instincts
two.
that you have to double down on to make sure that the AI stays in that you remain in control. That we did faster, more ambitious. We can do things more alone or autonomously. We can more fun. Oh, let's do our best that we can do in 5 minutes. O is about optionality. We can generate more options. We can have more swings at bat. And this actually came from you, Steve. You had mentioned how Quinn Slack had said generating more swings at bat. And that was like a huge light bulb moment for me because there's a school of thought that says creating option rich systems is actually one of the most powerful economic forces that you can create. And this is actually why modularity is so important is that you can swap out parts of the system, right? And other parts of the system don't need to care. A/B testing is a form of optionality. And so the Toyota production system is a feature that is just rich with options. The notion that you can pull things and
I don't think most people understand what Toyota did to manufacturing. I don't think they get it. But like in the what, 50s, 60s,
yeah,
Toyota just completely reinvented it by turning it from something that was super rigid into something that was super fluid and
yep.
flexible. And like they just did things that blew people's minds. But now it's how everybody does manufacturing. And we learned a lot of lessons that are surprisingly relevant to what's happening today with the way coding is changing.
Absolutely. In fact, one episode that we'll have was about this incredible 2 hour masterclass, this personal tutoring session that we had with Dr. Carlos Baldwin, who she wrote the book on modularity in 1999. And we had the preeminent authority on the Toyota production system, Dr. Stephen Spear, who I wrote a book with called Wiring the Winning Organization, and one of the premier authorities on how Amazon created modularity and optionality in that amazing transformation that you were a part of in the early 2000s. And Steve, that was such a mind blowing, and it was actually one of the most incredible intellectual moments that I've had in my life. And we learned about a formula called NK over T and sigma that changed the way I viewed the world. So we won't go into that now, but suffice to say that vibe coding enables the generation of far more options. One example we talked about in this podcast is that right now, before you were locked into a Java Swing app for Wyvern and an iOS Objective C app and an Android something app, and you're
Mhm.
exploring multiple options, whether it's in JavaScript, React, or maybe even Flutter. That too is optionality. Steve.
Yeah, it's optionality is absolutely sublime. It's something that takes a while to sink in how important it is. But the fact that you can just basically fire at five different agents on the same problem and have them solve the same problem in different ways, they don't even have to do a good job. They'll get far enough along that you'll quickly learn which of the options, and you get to decide at the end. It's like you've gone to the horse racetrack and you get to bet after the race is over. It's the stupidest thing ever. It's brilliant. And you get it with vibe coding. And it just changes everything because now you're not locked into these one-way door decisions that you didn't properly vet or research. And that's at the individual level, and that's at the level of an entire big company.
Yeah. Yeah. Truly awesome. In fact, I just noticed on the OpenAI Codex screen in there, it's not the CLI version, it's the version that you get through ChatGPT. You can have it generate an answer or generate five of them, right? Another example of generating multiple options of which you get to choose which one is the best. Awesome.
Yeah. Oh yeah, people are baking this into the tools now. Optionality, it's going to become a core part of everybody's tool chest, but it's new to engineers right now, I think.
So good, Steve. So that's my aspirations for episode 2. We are still just scratching the surface of what's in the vibe coding book.
Yep.
Right now, we're still in part 1 of like why vibe code. 2, we're going to be talking about the theory and the first steps. Part 3 is all about the practices, which you mentioned. What do we need to do in our inner, middle, and outer development loops to better prevent, detect, and correct these horrible things that can happen to us? And it's not the AI's fault. It is our responsibility. And as you put it, it's your kitchen as the head chef and it's your Michelin stars, right? You can't blame anybody, right? It is your responsibility. And then part 4 is all about going big. How do you take this to the team level or team of teams level? Anything before we conclude, Steve?
Excited to do the next billion episodes. We've got a lot. Yeah.
Sounds good. You can pre-order the Vibe Coding book on Amazon, and we'll catch you on the next episode. Thank you, Steve.
See you, Gene.